Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Preseason 8 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today I'll be covering mid lane Yasuo, the Unforgiven.
Death is like the wind, always by my side.
So let's hop right into this guide by looking at Yasuo's pros and his cons. So Yasuo is a champion with some very high damage output because of his 100% crit chance, and he's very mobile as well. Unless you have hard crowd controls, it's really hard to stop a Yasuo. He also has no ability cost, so he's not very reliant on having blue buff, and he has a shield that is amazing for trades. He has a really strong teamfighting ultimate that can combo with a lot of different champions out there, and his win wall can be pretty damn busted. It can do things like absorb an entire Misfortune ultimate, so in the right circumstances, it can be incredibly strong. Now Yasuo, however, is very vulnerable to crowd control. Sure, pretty much no champion out there likes to be crowd controlled, but Yasuo does rely on his mobility, so a point-and-click CC can really screw him over. Yasuo's also got no reliable crowd control, and he needs minions for his escape. Unless they're there, he obviously can't E to them. Then finally, Yasuo is a very squishy champion that has a high skill cap. You really rely on knowing a lot of the champion matchups out there because a lot of them can be hard if you don't know what you're doing. For your runes, you want to go for precision and domination, grabbing press the attack as your keystone. This will make your attacks do additional damage on targets you've hit 3 consecutive times, so Yasuo can put out a lot of damage with it. You'll then want to go for Triumph so your takedowns restore some health and give you additional gold, and then get Alacrity so your takedowns also give you permanent attack speed. Finish off Precision by grabbing Coup de Grace, which makes you deal more damage to low health enemies. You'll then want to move into Domination and get Sudden Impact so you gain a burst of lethality and magic penetration whenever you blink onto a target. This will obviously work great with your E ability. Then finally pick up Ravenous Hunter so your takedowns give you permanent healing from your ability damage. For your first summoner spell, you want to pick up Flash. Yasuo is a fairly squishy champion, and you can use Flash throughout the game if you get caught in a bad position to save your life. Of course, you can also use it offensively to engage onto an enemy from a long distance for an easy kill by also using your E ability. Now as for your second summoner spell, you'll want to grab either Ignite or Exhaust. Ignite is my personal favorite because it does add a nice amount of kill pressure in the mid lane, and it can get you snowballing. If you are against a hard matchup, however, then you may want to go for Exhaust instead. This is the better option if you know the enemy can easily all-in you. Use it to reduce their damage so you can actually survive. Your passive ability is Way of the Wanderer, which doubles your critical strike chance and also gives you a really strong shield that is great for trading. The first part is Intent, and this makes Yasuo gain double the critical strike chance from all sources, but his basic attacks and Steel Tempest respectively deal 90% and 75% damage when critically striking. The second part is called Resolve, and this makes Yasuo generate a flow stack for every 59, 52, or 46 units he travels by any means. At 100 stacks and upon taking champion or monster damage, Yasuo consumes all flow to shield himself for between 100 and 510 based on level for up to 1 second. So this obviously is an incredibly strong passive because it makes you have a 100% crit chance from just 2 items, and that shield is fantastic in trades. You'll want to be moving around in the lane phase as much as possible because you have to be doing this to actually generate those flow stacks. Once you hit 100, you can always engage into the enemy champion because you know your trade is going to be a lot more effective since you will have that shield. Your Q ability is Steel Tempest, and this is one of your main abilities that does damage in a line and can even tornado the enemy. On first cast, after a 0.54 to 0.18 based on bonus attack speed seconds delay, Yasuo thrusts sword forward, dealing physical damage to all enemies in the target direction, and granting Gathering Storm upon dealing damage. Steel Tempest can critically strike for 75%, Infinity Edge plus 37.5% bonus damage, and applies on-hit effects to the first target hit. Casting Steel Tempest while dashing with Sweeping Blade affects enemies around Yasuo instead. On second cast, for the next 6 seconds, Yasuo gains another Gathering Storm stack by hitting an enemy with Steel Tempest, empowering it for the same duration. On third cast, Yasuo consumes all stacks to unleash a whirlwind that travels an increased distance in the target direction, dealing the same damage and knocking airborne all enemies hit. Steel Tempest knockup does not gain increased range when cast during Sweeping Blade. So that was quite a bit of text, but what you need to know is your Q ability does damage in a line, and as long as it's hitting, you can use the empowered versions, and the third one does your tornado and knocks people up. This of course is going to allow you to use your ultimate because the target will be airborne. It also has a 100% AD ratio and a 475 range, so it does a pretty significant amount of damage, and it does it from a short range. Your W ability is Wind Wall, and this is your wall ability that blocks all projectiles for 3.75 seconds. When activated, Yasuo creates a gust of wind that travels in the target direction over 0.25 seconds to form a wall in front of him. The wall slowly drifts forward 50 units over 3.75 seconds, blocking all enemy projectiles except turret attacks. So this ability does have the potential to be incredibly strong because it can block all projectiles over that 3.75 second duration. That would block everything from Syndra's kit up to Miss Fortune's ultimate. Now, although this ability is really strong, it doesn't actually do any damage. The only thing that changes is the wall width, so you do have to max this ability last, but you definitely want to point in it early on. Try to hold on to it as long as you can. When you see those dangerous things coming in, make sure you use your wind wall. Your E ability is Sweeping Blade, which gives you a ton of mobility and actually does some pretty decent damage as well. When activated, Yasuo dashes a fixed distance towards an enemy over 0.55 seconds, reduced with bonus movement speed, increased by slowing effects, dealing magic damage. Yasuo cannot dash to the same target more than once every few seconds. Each Sweeping Blade cast increases the next dash's base damage by 25% for 5 seconds up to 50%. Now, although this is a pretty spammable ability, you can only use it on the same target every couple seconds, and most of the damage comes from AP and not AD. That means during the lane phase, your Q ability is definitely going to be much stronger, so you want to max it first, but this is still a really solid ability for mobility. You can use it to jump around on minions over and over again, and it's also a great escape ability as well. If you are trying to run away, make sure you dash to minions. Your ultimate is Last Breath, which does an absolute ton of damage, however, it can only be used on knocked up enemies. When activated, Yasuo blinks to the visible airborne enemy champion nearest the cursor, instantly generating 100 flow stacks but resetting Steel Tempests. Upon arrival, he suspends all nearby airborne enemies for 1 second, dealing physical damage. For the next 15 seconds, Yasuo's critical strikes gain 50% bonus armor penetration. So this is a really strong ability because it is AoE and does 150% bonus AD ratio to all those enemies, so it can be pretty damn devastating. The downside is it has to be used on airborne targets, so you have to be landing the third form of your Q ability, or you have to be comboing it with something like a Malphite. In the right circumstances against multiple enemies, it can be very strong. Also worth noting is that 50% bonus armor penetration, so even tanky targets that do get hit by this ability will be destroyed shortly afterwards. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then focus on maxing your Q ability first because it does damage in a line, which is great for last hitting and of course poking the enemy. We'll then want to max our E ability second just to reduce the cooldown as much as possible, and it does also do some damage, which is pretty nice when combined with your Q. That of course means for last you have to save your W ability, but make sure you take a point in it at level 3 so you can actually use your wind wall and block all sorts of damage. During the lane phase, you'll have to play differently based on the type of champion you're against. Against most melee champions, you should be able to freely trade against them the majority of the lane. Poke them as much as you can with your Steel Tempest and fully engage onto them whenever you pop them up with your Tornado. You'll also want to consider taking Exhaust against bursty champions like Talon or Zed. Against really strong ranged mages, then you're probably going to have to play a lot more passively. Be rather defensive and pick up as much farm as you can until you get a gank or outscale your enemy. In teamfights, you usually have to be pretty patient until you build up your Steel Tempest. Wait until you have 3 stacks and then engage onto them whenever you land your Tornado and follow it up with your Last Breath. There is also multiple champions that will pop up enemies so you can use your Last Breath on top of them, so if they engage, make sure you follow up. It'll be stuff like Malphite Ultimate or Lee Sin Ultimate. While you're teamfighting, make sure you block as much important damage as you can with your wind wall, and make sure you dodge as many skill shots as possible with your Sweeping Blade. If you can dodge a lot of the enemy's damage, it's going to be very hard to bring you down. Now let's look at some of your hard matchups, and first up is Annie. Annie's going to be really hard for you because she has a point and click stun and an insane amount of burst damage. She's going to be able to easily take off your shield ability, and after it runs out, engage onto you with your stun and delete you. Against an Annie, you have to be very careful, especially if she has her stun available, and don't go anywhere near her. For the next hard matchup, I've got Kayle. Kayle's a champion that's going to be able to slow you with her Q ability, activate her E, and then completely destroy you. She also has her W to keep herself sustained and also give her bonus movement speed if she does need to try to run away from you. Whenever you engage onto a Kayle or one of her teammates, if she is nearby, she's going to activate her R ability and you're going to do no damage. Make sure you're very aware of this and don't overcommit if it's just going to get you killed. For the next hard matchup, I've got Malzahar. He's going to be a very annoying lane opponent for you because if his E ability jumps on top of you over and over again, it's really going to destroy your health pool. After he puts this E ability on you and activates his W, he can use his R ability on you and completely destroy you, pretty much 100 to 0 you. You'll have to make sure you pick up at least a QSS to break his ultimate because if you don't, you're pretty much dead. Alright, now let's finish this off with your item build, which starts with either a Doran's Blade health potion and a warding totem, or a Doran's Shield health potion and a warding totem. For your core build, you want to go for a Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge, and a Bloodthirster. This will give you a 100% crit chance because of your passive, increased critical strike damage, some nice attack speed, lifesteal, and a lot of attack damage. With just these items, you will be completely destroying the enemies. For your boot options, you want to get Berserker Greaves to increase your damage by giving you attack speed, Merc Treads against high AP and CC heavy teams, or Ninja Tabbies against high AD teams. As for the item pool, we first have the Guardian Angel. This is a really strong item on Yasuo because it will increase your damage but also give you a really solid defensive as well, so you can come back to life in the mid and late game. Another really solid defensive and offensive item would be the Frozen Mallet. This will give you some really nice attack damage and of course a slow, which will help you keep on top of enemies but also give you a really nice health pool at the same time. Another really solid offensive and defensive option would be the Maw. This is an item you will want to take against AP assassins because that defensive shield is great at surviving their all-in combos. If you're against a really tanky team, you could always go for Blade of the Ruined King as well because it will make you do a nice extra chunk of damage onto them based on their health pool. Then if you do need a Quicksilver Sash, you could always get a Mercurial Scimitar as well to break out of crowd controls. It's really strong against things like Malzahar. Then finally, if you needed some armor penetration, you can get either the LDR or the Mortal Reminder. If I have to choose one, I usually go for the LDR, but if you need the Grievous Wounds, then make sure you pick up the Mortal Reminder. Keep in mind, however, that Yasuo's ultimate does negate 50% of armor for 15 seconds, so it's not always needed. For my example full build, however, I take that core build, get some Berserker Greaves, and then a Guardian Angel and a Frozen Mallet. This is a more defensive setup with the Guardian Angel and the Frozen Mallet both in there, however you're going to do a ton of damage because you are a Yasuo, so you don't really need things like a Blade of the Ruined King in there. You'll still be doing an absolute ton of damage, you can definitely hard carry games, and you're going to be at least somewhat tanky. But that covers everything for Yasuo in Pre-Season 8. If you guys did enjoy the video, please make sure you drop a like and subscribe because I do make videos pretty regularly. Also, make sure you check out the video description below for a link to all of my social medias, and I do also have a Discord server, so make sure you hop in and say hello. But other than that, thank you guys so much for checking out the video, I really do appreciate it. So on that note, take it easy, have a good day, and peace.